Hey everybody, today I thought I'd make a quick video going through all the things that I acquired at the UK Games Expo in 2021. So the Games Expo is currently actually ongoing, however I could only make it up for one day this year, so only managed to get around the exhibitors hall and not actually get any gaming in. So let's get started on the video and show everything I purchased. So first thing I bought is this really luxury deluxe dice tower from Geek & Sons, who normally make amazing gaming tables, the highest quality products. And I've always wanted a dice tower, and this is the actual exact dice tower that I wanted. So really happy to get my hands on this one. It wasn't the cheapest of dice towers, but you got to pay for quality, and this is something I've been after for a long time. Nice solid product there, and if you're looking for a real good quality dice tower, I would highly recommend going to Geek & Sons and picking one up, because this is fantastic. But let's get started on the actual game. So I've got quite a few games here, lots of different types, and the first one I'm going to be looking at is Village Green. So this is obviously a very small game, only £12. This is a puzzly hand management style game by, this is actually by P. Sylvester, who's known for The King is Dead. And this is kind of a puzzly style game as you are laying these cards out in this grid, trying to make the best garden and trying to get the most points as you can. But there's quite a few restrictions that go on the game. You're trying to get all these different points by lining things up in columns and rows. And it looks like a nice puzzly little game that I tend to enjoy. So I've heard good things about this one, and I'm hoping it's as good as I think it's going to be. So that is Village Green. The next game is Brussels 1897. So this is actually the card game version of Brussels, I believe it's 1893, which is a game that's currently out of print and I can't get my hands on. However, I have heard that 1897 is just as good, or maybe not quite as good, but in the ballpark. This is, I suppose you can call it, a worker placement game that uses cards. And again, this one works in rows and columns as you're playing this grid of cards, and you're playing these cards on top of them to acquire more cards, to get points in different ways. But I also like the way that whenever you play cards and replace these cards on this grid with your own, you have to think about the area control of each of these columns, because you get an additional bonus at the bottom of that column, which can make you move up tracks to make things worth more points. It all looks pretty smart and it looks pretty concise, so I'm actually excited and have high hopes for Brussels 1897, because it looks actually really well ironed out. So that's Brussels 1897. The next game is something very different. This is a bit of a punt of a game. I don't really know much about this one. This is a cooperative word game, a party game called Fiesta de los Muertos, which actually looks quite interesting. So I think the idea is that everyone's going to have one of these tiles. You're going to write a word on it, and you're basically going to be passing these tiles around from player to player and have to write a word associated to that word. And once it's gone around all the players, you have to try and work out amongst you what each of the current words link to the original words. So it sounds really simple. I know there's a lot of games of this style, these word party style games. However, this one has a slightly different variant on that, and it only plays in about 15 minutes and accommodates 4 to 8 players. So who knows, this could be a good one and something a bit similar to just one, but an alternative. So that is Fiesta de los Muertos. Next up is something that's a bit of a classic. This is Cant Stop. Now, I actually never played Cant Stop before yesterday, actually, so we managed to get some gaming in after the expo. And this is a classic push your luck style game, I think from the 80s, as you are rolling dice trying to climb up these different tracks and basically try to race to the top of these different towers, depending on the pit value. So the more common the rolls are, the higher you got to go, but the rarer the rolls are, you got to go fewer spaces. Really streamlined, quite elegant, and it actually has dated really well. So yeah, this is a nice kind of timeless addition to the collection, and I think a lot of people can get a lot of fun out of Cant Stop. And I will say, despite never playing Cant Stop, I was really familiar with the way the game looked, and this has a slightly different revamped artwork, where you have this almost mountain climbing style theme rather than the standard abstract artwork. So that is Cant Stop. Next up, I have Mandala. So this is an exclusive 2-player only game where well, to be honest, I don't really know that much about the gameplay itself, but I bought this one purely based off excellent reputation and word of mouth. So I've heard this is one of the best 2-player games in recent memory. Again, it only plays in 20 minutes. Has some really nice production value, so I'm quite interested to see if this game is as good as people are saying it is. And it's not often I buy games purely based on reputation and word of mouth, but I've given this one a go because it's affordable, and yeah, I've heard extremely good things. So that is Mandala. The next game I'm going to talk about is Watergate, which is actually by one of my favourite designers in Matthias Kramer. As you can see here, I bought this one from Zatu. This one is another strictly two-player game where one player takes the role of President Nixon and the other one is supposed to be the press. And it's asymmetric, and you're trying to basically, if you're the press player, you're trying to kind of tie this conspiracy together and pin the blame on Nixon, where Nixon is trying to block off all those routes and try to stop the other player from doing that. So I'm quite interested in an asymmetrical game, and this one, again, has got an extremely good word of mouth, and I know it's got a stellar reputation as being one of the best two-player games of recent memory. So yeah, I got high hopes for this one because it seems to tick all the boxes, despite me not normally digging too deep into two-player only games. So that is Watergate. And the final small box game I'm going to talk about is Seven Wonders Duel. Again, another two-player game, so a bit of a turn of direction for me in terms of buying these games recently, because I don't normally buy two-player only games. However, I seem to be on a bit of a splurge recently. So this one, if you're watching this channel, you're probably quite familiar with this. This is the two-player only variant, or the I suppose the variant of Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders, the actual card drafting game. This one, you're acquiring cards based on this almost like system where you're covering cards up, and as you pick more cards, you're kind of revealing other cards, building up technologies. You've got a bit of a push back and forth and a tug of war style thing going on, and it's got to a point now where this one, I can't, I bit the bullet and want to give this one a go. It's affordable, and it's regarded as one of the best two-player games ever, and in fact one of the best games ever. So hoping it's going to live up to that reputation. Let's go into some of the bigger games then. So this one is Bastille by Queen Games. This one we actually got on sale, so it was relatively affordable. And believe it or not, a few years ago when this one came out, this is a game that did pique my interest. I wanted to give this one a go. However, something stopped me from doing that. I don't quite know what it was. This is, I suppose you can call it a pretty standard Euro. You can see from the board here, it looks pretty generic. However, some of the gameplay looks pretty interesting. I'm pretty sure the main mechanism here is worker placement again, as you're placing these shields down on these different locations. However, they do have different values and powers, so you're getting better rewards depending on the shields you deploy. You want to get priorities, but you also want to get your more powerful ones down. And that sounds really cool. The rest of it is pretty standard stuff in terms of getting money, buying these cards for set collection bonuses and stuff. But from what I've seen of it, it looks pretty well put together, and hoping this one can actually can impress me. So that is Bastille by Queen Games. Next up is another two-player only game. This one is Fairy Tale Inn, and this one looks really nice, really family friendly, and it's by Paolo Mori, another designer who I rate quite highly. This one is, I suppose, a gamer's variant or a gamer's take on Connect 4. So you can see from the board here, or the table state, you've got this big grid, very familiar with Connect 4, as you're playing these different fairy tale characters down on your side of the grid, and you are going to be kind of getting points in different ways, getting money and buying new tiles. The other person's doing the same thing, so you're batting back and forth for the spots you want to get into. And it just looks like something quite unique, despite obviously being a direct take on Connect 4, but you don't see many games using this mechanism. And I'm hoping this can be a bit of a modern take on Connect 4, and has a kind of light-hearted feel, and has that sort of niche to fit in my collection. So that is Fairy Tale Inn. The next step is definitely the bargain of the convention. This is The Princes of Florence. So by some of my favourite designers, in fact one of my favourite designers here, Wolfgang Kramer. This one is actually the original, or certainly the core material that one of my, a Euro game that I really love called Colosseum was based on. This one, you can tell from the box art, is a much drier version of that. It's by Rio Grande Games. And I actually managed to get this in just for £20, which is much cheaper than you'd be able to find it elsewhere. And this one, you are auctioning for these different tiles. You're you see you've got this kind of polyomino style mechanism as well. I know a lot of people are going to be put off by the look of this game, but if the gameplay is anything like Colosseum, then it's going to be a lot of fun. And to be honest, despite culling Colosseum, I am starting to miss it a little bit. So hoping Princes of Florence will replace Colosseum and actually improve upon it, because I know with this game you're in one of two camps, either in the Colosseum camp or in the Princes of Florence camp. So yeah, excited to play Princes of Florence. I have, speaking of Wolfgang Kramer, this is his design partner, Michael Kiesling. This is Miyabi. Miyabi is actually probably one of the games that I've wanted the longest out of the set. For some reason, again, I've never really bought it, so I managed to find it for a good price, just for £25. This one you can see is a beautiful looking game, and it's by Haber, so a more entry level, or this, I suppose you call this a bit of a Gateway Plus style game. However, the decisions in this game look quite taxing, as you have this grid of this individual player board, and you're acquiring these different tiles with different kind of symbols on them, and you're trying to line them up in certain spots. But the higher you get these symbols, the more points you're getting. So quite puzzly, quite interesting restrictions, and it looks like it has some decent decisions throughout. It only takes 45 minutes as well, 2 to 4 players. So yeah, I'm excited to try this one, and again, more puzzly style games, which I seem to be enjoying at the moment. So yeah, excited to try Miyabi. Another game here, we have Four Gardens. So finally managed to get my hands on Four Gardens, which if you watched the games that I'm excited for video I released a couple of days, Four Gardens was actually on that. This one is I suppose you can call it a resource management style game and a contract fulfillment, as you are collecting resources based on this big pagoda here, and you're putting on your little storage house. However, you only take things from either bottom to top or top to bottom, which means that if you want a particular resource, you might be locked out of doing that. And you have to manipulate this pagoda to try and line things up the way you want them. And then you're trying to basically pay for these different tiles by collecting these resources and painting these panoramas, these pictures, to get your victory point. So yeah, it looks really cool, looks pretty accessible again, and I've heard good things, and it looks like it could be something I'd enjoy quite a bit. So that is Four Gardens. And the final game we bought personally was Meadow. I actually bought this as a present for my girlfriend, so I'm hoping she enjoys this one. This one is a really beautiful looking game, as you can see from the cover here. And you are basically trying to collect these different cards, these really beautiful illustrated cards, and by deploying these kind of little tokens here, it kind of shows where you can get. So I think, for example, if you put this tile here, it says 2, so you'd go basically 2 in, and you'd get this card here. And you're going to get points by collecting these cards, and then some cards have prerequisites on them to get more cards. Now, it looks like it has quite a bit going on, actually, for a relatively, certainly a welcoming looking game, but hoping it strikes that good balance of being easy to digest, but has some interesting decisions, because that's the kind of games I enjoy. So yeah, really excited to try Meadow, because I'm hoping it can be one of the games of the year, because this is actually a new one, and when a game looks this good, you want it to be that good. So some other games I wanted to mention that were bought by a friend of mine who went with us to the convention. And you know, while these aren't going to be in my own personal collection, these are going to be games that undoubtedly I'll be playing sooner or later. The first one is being Saboteur. Saboteur, I haven't played this one. This is, I suppose, a kind of hidden role style game. You're trying to build these paths to get these cards, and other people are trying to throw you off the track, as some people are kind of the saboteur and trying to turn their back on you and stop you from winning. The next one is Cluster. Now, Cluster is a strange game, probably the strangest game we played over the weekend, because we did manage to play this one. This is a game where you have basically this big shoelace, and you're trying to put these magnets inside this ring, which is the shoelace, trying to keep it on its own and not connect with the other magnets, because if you do, you get those into your hand, and it's one of these shedding style games as you're trying to get rid of the magnets. However, you can actually manipulate the board by pulling the shoelace, or you can use the magnets to push each other and things. Be careful not to make them snap together. And it's good fun. It's actually quite a bit of a novelty, and it went down a lot better than I thought it would. So simple and a bit silly, but for some reason it worked. So that's Cluster. The next game is Smartphone Inc. Now, I know this is a game that's been pretty popular over the last few years. And we actually managed to get a game of this in last night. And wow, was I impressed with this little kind of streamlined economic style game as you're trying to manufacture these phones, trying to get the best technology, trying to sell them into new markets, trying to dominate those markets by undercutting people. Wow, is this game good. And it's so digestible as well. It's just broken down into simple little phases. And that core mechanism where you are trying to line up these tiles to determine the actions you get is fascinating. So yeah, early impressions are extremely good for Smartphone Inc. So yeah, excited to get them to the table again. The second last game I'm going to talk about is called Mazescape. Now, I suppose this is more of an activity than a board game as such, but this one you have this little book and you are trying to follow these paths, try and get these different objectives. And as you go into one sheet, you kind of flip it over and go down different tracks. And it's actually a really interesting little puzzle. Very frustrating if you're not good at this kind of thing, as I'm not. But the idea is certainly novel and creative, and certainly something fresh. And the last game I'm going to talk about is Mr. Jack Pocket, which is a simple little two-player deduction game. I don't know much about this one other than I know a lot of deduction fans enjoy Mr. Jack. So that concludes my little haul here of the games I bought at the UK Games Expo. So really excited to get this played, despite having a pretty overwhelming shelf of shame now, and certainly have a lot to get through. But yeah, some reviews here to look forward to if any of these games pique your interest. And I will say, if you ever get a chance to go to the Games Expo, I'd really recommend doing so, even though this year was a little bit toned back and not quite the not quite the spectacle that it has been in previous years, but I suppose for obvious reasons. But regardless, it was a good time, and we had a good weekend. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. And for everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.